Okay, odds are you're one of the people in America who's better off today than 3 years ago. And now you've got some smug Democrat calling you racist and trying to jam one hand in your ass and another in your pocket. So at a time when taxes are down, jobs are up, and the economy is way up, it'd be nice if there were a candidate who had more to offer than making you pay for other people's shit. Well, the eagle has landed. Say hello to President Donald J. Trump. He ain't just making America great again. Trump's doing things no president has ever done before. He's keeping promises, packing courts, defending the border, rebuilding our military, and making Chuck Schumer cry like a schoolgirl with two skin knees. This president is 6'3" of let's put America first. And oh yeah, immigration, jobs, drug prices, nobody's got better numbers. The game has changed, and the Democrats are officially fucking crazy. So keep America great. Stand with Trump in 2020.
an unconstitutional hoax.
Do you remember when big tech called themselves the free speech platform and used slogans like "Don't be evil"? Fast forward a decade, and suddenly those platforms we loved for years have changed, and the promises they made at the start no longer apply. So what happened? How did we get here? Over the last decade, these companies have quietly moved their corporate headquarters outside the US to EU tax havens. The big change? Well, big tech is now governed under UN law. In simple terms, US free speech laws no longer apply to these platforms. What started as free speech for all is now regulated speech to some. We believe you, the people, not big tech, are the best judge of what you want to watch, read, and hear. We are content creators. We understand that a creator's ability to make a living should not be infringed upon. We created Zap Media with you in mind, a free market, next-gen media platform that believes in protecting your speech rights and, equally as important, your privacy, including IP theft and data mining. By removing the threat of censorship and freeing the market, content creators have a home base to build their platforms and grow their brands. The Zap Media community are brand ambassadors, coalescing behind publishers, subscribers, and advertisers alike. This is the beginning of the next big wave in digital media. With an estimated 225 million video-on-demand users expected by 2022, Zap is poised, with your help, to revolutionize the marketplace as we know it. We look forward to partnering with you.
Aloha and welcome to Trust and Verify. I can't even believe I made that cue. Let me start off by saying welcome to the Trust and Verify show. I gotta open the kimono right off the bat, but let me introduce my friend first. My friend, my partner, my co-host, Boogie Bumper. Boogie and I were eulogizing behind the scene, and I swear we cannot make most of this public because you guys would be like, what the hell are these guys talking about? But I digress. Welcome to the show, Boogie. How's it going, my brother?
Good, James. Good to be with you. No, I think it's a perfect opportunity because as we were so reliably informed by many people in the media world, James, it's very wrong to speak ill of the dead.
That's right.
So remember after Elijah Cummings died, so I think it would only be fair to give Abu al-Bakari a similar treatment to that of Elijah Cummings. So let's say he was a very good man. He was an austere religious man, as the Washington Post points out, James. A family man. He had many wives. And he cared for them deeply. He was a simple man from a simple time, James, as you remarked in the pre-show, from the Stone Age, according to you. But, you know, he rejects consumerism in all of its forms, and he was a spiritual leader to many. So how does that work? Is that fine? Because we wouldn't want to speak ill of the dead.
We wouldn't want to speak.
We wouldn't want to
say
bad things. No, we wouldn't want to say bad things.
Family man. He died surrounded by his children.
Fantastic. How you been? All right? How's things?
Good. Listen, if you guys aren't up to speed with what we're talking about, there is a hashtag on Twitter right now called hashtag WAPO Death Notices, and you have to look at it. If you want a good laugh today, you just have to read it. I mean, we got stuff in here about, I'll let Boogie get to a lot of them, but one of my favorites is Jeffrey Dahmer, culinary genius that changed the world for Wisconsin. I mean, it's incredibly funny.
Is one. Lord Vader, fearless leader who brought peace to the galaxy, dies age 45. Some people are doing some tremendous stuff on this hashtag. What else have you got? Genghis Khan, James, accomplished horseman and traveler, breathes his last breath. They're doing well.
Hilarious. They're doing great. It's freaking hilarious.
One of the better ones I saw was what you pointed out before the show, Timothy McVeigh, fertilizer enthusiast. Patriot fertilizer enthusiast.
It's funny.
Everyone in the chat's like, what is going on? What are you talking about? Well, it's the way we eulogize people now. We will get to that later in the show, I promise you. But first, James, if I can, I just want to touch on this. A little bit of Donald Trump's announcement about this earlier today, James. Now, a lot of people said when he said, oh, something big just happened, there was all kinds of theories from, people winning the lottery to people getting locked up in Gitmo. Sorry, it's just a dead terrorist. Sorry to let you all down.
Yeah.
Sorry. I know you had your hopes set on something more. Just a dead terrorist. But, James, you're a bit of a gearhead, aren't you? You're a fan of motorsport and cars and automobiles, yeah?
Yeah. I used to
Well, I'm pleased. I'm pleased to report. Hi, Mr. President. Mr. President Donald Trump, he's aware of your fandom when it comes to the automobile industry, James, and he had this to say in the press conference.
Of our world. The forced religious conversions, the orange suits prior to so many beheadings, all of which were openly displayed for the world to see. This was all that Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, this is what he...
Al-Bugatti.
Al-Bugatti.
Al-Bugatti. Is Al-Bugatti the guy who... is he the guy who designed the Veyron, James? I'm not sure.
Those Bugatti motorcycles are really nice.
People have been talking about this Tesla guy like he was something special, but let me tell you, nobody designs an automobile like the Islamic State terrorist Al-Bugatti. Al-Bugatti, he was a hell of a guy. Tremendous motor vehicles. Can we get Jay Leno on to talk about? Yeah, well, I own 3 Bugattis. Al-Bugatti, hell of a guy. Huh? Hell of a guy. Let's carry on.
He wanted. This is what he was proud of. He was a sick and depraved man, and now he's gone.
But one hell of a car designer.
Baghdadi was vicious and violent, and he died in a vicious and violent way as a coward, running and crying. This raid was impeccable and could only have taken
perfect raid, big beautiful raid,
place with the
tremendous raid,
acknowledgement and help of certain other nations and people. I want to thank the nations of Russia.
This is key, I think. Listen to who he thanks.
Turkey, Syria, and Iraq.
Turkey and Syria, specifically. And
I also want to thank the Syrian Kurds for certain support they were able to give us.
Now, let me put this to you. I'd go so far as to say that there is a very high probability that the Syrian Kurds did absolutely nothing in regards to this. And perhaps Turkey did absolutely nothing as well. And perhaps the Syrian government did absolutely nothing as well. And maybe Russia did nothing as well. But do you think that there might be a political reason after the last few weeks that Donald Trump has had in regards to Turkey and Syria and the Syrian Kurds, James, to come out and we want to thank our tremendous allies. All of them are very happy with us today. Don't forget the Syrian Kurds. Like, the Syrian Kurds might have heard this announcement and gone, what the fuck did he just say? Did we do this? Did we have something to do with this? Oh, no. Damn it. Because now it's going to be very difficult, isn't it, in the press for at least the next couple of days to keep hammering the Donald Trump wants all of the Syrian Kurds to be turned into melted glass thing that the Democrats and the corporate press have been doing. Am I wrong? Am I off base here?
No, you're absolutely spot on. But I can tell you what I can tell you exactly. No, I can actually tell you that A, you're spot on, and B, I can tell you exactly what all those countries actually did for the raid is they didn't shoot us. That's what happened, because the president later in the news conference said, yeah, we told Russia we're coming. Like, he literally said, I want to thank Russia right here. And then in the news conference, he told everybody what Russia did. They didn't shoot us. Like, literally, we had to fly over some of the most heavily armed Russian positions, and they didn't shoot at us. Thank you, Russia. Like, so this is what they all did. They just got the fuck out of the way. I mean, that's good enough. I mean, to be honest with you, that's good enough. Like, hey, thank you. thanks for not shooting at us. And because he even highlighted that there was a few, and that's why he made it very clear in that press conference. He said there was a few that did shoot at us, and we took out the emplacements immediately. Like, basically, I mean, what kind of idiot takes a AK-47 and shoots at heavily armed helicopters, and then those heavily armed helicopters basically all just lit him up instantly? He said it was a sight to behold. So, but he did very specifically clarify that we don't think any of those positions were nation sponsored, that they were all little, basically, idiot terrorists that were out there with a frickin' 9mm.
I just wonder though, how, because we've been driven so far towards the cliff of cynicism lately, James. I just wonder that if this will do anything except give the true believers another point to talk about, and the detractors of the Trump administration something else to not believe. Because after after Barack Obama reportedly took out Osama bin Laden, there are people who still say today that never happened. That was all just a made-up thing because we didn't get to see it. Show us the body. You need to parade the body around the town square as though it were medieval London, James, hauling a guy so the peasants could come out and throw rotten tomatoes at him. Otherwise, we don't believe it. So I just wonder if the same thing's going to happen here. Probably.
It is possible because we are that cynical, but here's the problem is because you basically, again, as usual, Boogie hits the nail on the head, is that there's actual news reports that back up the fact that we didn't go and get Osama bin Laden, that come from military sources and high level sources. And you can go to True Pundit right now, Michael Moore, Thomas Paine. You can go right there and find a news story right now that absolutely we talked about way back in the day. At the time, I remember we were talking about the fact that that the government of the United States hid Osama bin Laden in Iran. Like, they were helping him get his dialysis. There's all these factors that lend that high degree of cynicism. And then you have the fact that the admiral that was in charge of the SEALs at the time, he was already basically a disgraced SEAL prior. He had been removed from the SEALs. And then, of course, he got his way worked back into command. And then these are the guys that, look, in special operations, nobody talks about anything, right? Delta Force keeps its mouth shut. Green Berets even keep their mouth shut for the most part. I mean, every special operator on the planet keeps its mouth shut. But suddenly under Osama bin Laden, you got the admiral licensing movie deals and book deals. You got McBooyah coming out and he's, wearing a $10,000 watch all over the place. So there's a lot of things that add to that cynicism on that case.
Sure.
And that's going to obscure today.
Well, can I play devil's advocate for you?
Sure.
So take into consideration going out of your way to thank the Syrians, the Turks, and the Syrian Kurds, okay? All of which have been a fulcrum for not leaving the Middle East by Donald Trump's detractors. Now, when you come out and say, well, we've just killed the leader of ISIS, that's another thing, right? To say, well, now we should be able to leave. And I suspect a lot of people will be cynical in that, oh, wait, so he just happened to kill the leader of ISIS at the same time when nobody wants him to leave the Syrian Kurds alone at the behest of Turkey, which he just went out of his way to thank for getting rid of the leader of ISIS, right? So now it's like, well, now we can bring him home. Now you can have no more complaints. I guarantee you at some point that line is going to be pushed as the cynical line. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
They're going to say it's all a play. It's all a work.
Yeah, I think that you've definitely, I mean, like we always talk about, you and I can destroy the narratives quicker than they can. It's absolutely, we can think faster than these fucks. But, yeah, you're spot on there. That is a play. I would say that from our point of view, not necessarily ours in that regard, but from the MAGA side of the community, you also have to look at the fact that, so we know that the only person we can trust is Donald Trump. Now, if the military is lying to Donald Trump, you then have to ask yourself, why? Why would they be lying to Donald Trump? They have a vested interest in al-Baghdadi still being alive, because the whole reason, like you just pointed out with that line, is that if al-Baghdadi's still around, they have an attack to stay in. So it doesn't.
But wait,
play.
so we don't entertain for a second that Donald Trump might be lying? Like, that's just off the table? That's not in the realm of possibility whatsoever, because he's the one who stands to gain from al-Baghdadi being dead.
It's the only reason that I have to say is I understand what you're saying. I take it off the table because he's always lived up to his word every single step of the way. But even if we take the absolute left's most cynical stance at looking at Donald Trump and saying he lied, we didn't get al-Baghdadi, then you have to square that with the same thing I just said. Why would anyone in the deep state stand behind Donald Trump's lie? There's 1 million people between Donald Trump and al-Baghdadi dying to expose that. There's television cameras, there's news people, there's guys in the Situation Room with cameras that are taking pictures, just like you saw on Dan Scavino's timeline. So again, you can't square the circle because there's that big, huge resistance. You got the leakers in the White House. You got the leakers leaking everything, except they're not leaking this operation. This operation didn't get leaked, right? And you look back at, again, why didn't he tell Nancy Pelosi about it? Because it would have leaked to everyone. He would have, and he even said that in the press conference. It would have put soldiers' lives at risk. They watched this operation happen live from the Situation Room. There's just, you can't square the circle, in my opinion, of him having the ability to lie to us for any kind of period of time, just because of all the people involved from the top to the bottom. That's why all the stuff that happened under Hillary Clinton leaked out. That's why all the stuff that happened with Barack Obama leaked out. Is because you can't go in to this Benghazi situation and try to blame the fucking YouTube video when you've got 1 million people between them in the Situation Room and the ambassador dying. And the story that happened there. I mean, we knew what happened within minutes. Within hours, for sure, the whole world knew. They're like, no, you fucking left them to die. Like, and everybody knew it instantly. So if that happened,
people knew before her because she was sleeping one off.
Yeah,
she was sleeping off a big night.
That's right.
So people knew before her. No, they're all fair points. That's fair enough. Just on the leaking stuff, I find it funny and predictable because it's all just about framing now. That's all the Democrats really have at this point. And, I'm trying to be as objective as I possibly can here, but put yourself in the shoes of the Trump administration here, James. So if they do, this is a lot of politics now is about creating scenarios where the opponent can't do anything right. So you just create losses. Trump's very good at doing this to his opponents. And on this occasion, they're trying to do it to him. So if he gives Pelosi a briefing and the information gets leaked, who gets blamed for the leak? It's not the Democrats. It's not Pelosi. It's Donald Trump. Right. Because the headlines will be, the Trump White House leaking again. Nobody has any security. It's chaos in the White House. Another leak. So he doesn't give them a briefing. Then what? Donald Trump should have briefed us. The reason he didn't brief us is because it's chaotic and he doesn't respect us. So either way, he can't win, right? That's right. I don't blame him for not leaking it. Yeah. I don't blame him for not debriefing them at all. Not for a single moment, because it's pretty obvious what would have happened. It would have been all over the front pages. They've created this atmosphere now where there's no such thing as a private conversation between Donald Trump and anybody else on the planet. They got whistleblowers coming out of their assholes and ear holes, every orifice imaginable. So why would you tell these people anything? These are the same people who said, I think it was Harry Reid, who said if Donald Trump becomes president, that the intelligence community should give him false briefings. Do you remember that?
Yep. Absolutely.
They should give him false information, openly advocating lying to the guy to give him bad info. And it's funny, you mentioned the deep state. We're back to believing the deep state. I had an article in the rundown today, but I didn't end up going to it because there's too much other stuff. Yeah. There was an opinion piece in the New York Times today. If you can get a chance to read it, check it out. It's defending the deep state. So we've gone from the deep state is a conspiracy theory to the deep state exists to the deep state is now a conspiracy theory again. And now they're saying, no, the deep state isn't a bad thing. It's just patriotic civil servants who stand up for the country. They're patriotic civil servants doing their duty. That. Jesus Christ. So now we're eulogizing the deep state, James. Good on them.
Yep, Charles Manson.
They got balls, these people. If nothing else, they've got balls.
Yeah.
I tell you what, a nice eulogy the Washington Post probably should have gone with a nice eulogy instead of trying to have a bet each way, because even the Huffington Post is ripping into these. Washington Post slam for calling Baghdadi an austere religious scholar. The headline on the obituary for the leader of the so-called Islamic State. Now it's the so-called Islamic State, James?
Right.
So-called. Well, we're not sure, quote unquote. Some people call them the Islamic State. Here at the Washington Post, we call them freedom fighters. Has since been charged, but critics are outraged, James. Conservatives outraged. The Washington Post sparked widespread backlash on Sunday for a headline change on its obituary for the leader of the so-called Islamic State, Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, whom it first described as the group's terrorist-in-chief, then after an edit as an austere religious scholar. The switch drew shock and ire from journalists, politicians, and pundits, so everybody was piling on the Washington Post, prompting an especially vociferous response from President Donald Trump's GOP allies. Former White House Press Secretary Sean Spicer was one of numerous Republicans to seek out the headline, emphasizing that Baghdadi was, quote, a ruthless, brutal terrorist who threatened our country. What a bigot. What a nasty racist. Sean, get back to the dance floor, mate. Enough of this commentary. I want to see you in another, Cuban Pete outfit, shaking maracas. This is out of your jurisdiction, sir. A stark juxtaposition to the Post's oddly complimentary word choice, James. Echoing his message, Stephanie Grisham, who is the current press secretary, tweeted the headline had left her speechless, James. Speechless. Though the headline was then changed a second time to refer to Baghdadi as, quote, an extremist leader, Trump's 2020 campaign seized on the previous version. It's another episode of Conservatives Pounce. Conservatives pounced on the Washington Post, James. Conservatives were outraged. Many people have pointed this out before. The whole point of articles like this is not really to draw attention to the Washington Post sticking their foot in their mouth. It's to draw attention to the outrage and the conservatives jumping all over it like they're doing something wrong, right? Like, you shouldn't be doing this. Why don't you control yourself, conservatives? It was just a mistake. He wasn't that bad of a guy. Sorry.
No, they literally called him an austere religious leader. I mean, what? They might as well have put in there that what did I say earlier? He had achieved his hermitage. Yes. I mean, come on. I mean, and that's why, these guys, I love articles like this where I know what they're trying to do. They're trying to make us the bad guys. But if you look at, again, I must point out.
Compared to Baghdadi?
Yeah. Look at the hashtag WAPO death notices, and you will see that it's not so much that we're outraged. It's not that. It's that we're having fun at your expense, and that's what they can't stand. We're laughing at them constantly. I mean, there's so many. There's probably 1 million different. In fact, I can tell you the WAPO death notices, there's 99.3 thousand tweets of things like this. Nero, emperor who helped Christians bring light to Rome, dies at 30.
Yeah.
I mean,
by setting them on fire.
Exactly.
That's how Nero did it.
Yeah.
He was a visionary, James.
Muhammad Atta, skilled aviator and leader of men, dies at 33. Genghis Khan,
allegedly,
noted horseman and world traveler, passes on. Okay, we're pointing out that you guys are just foolish. Like, it's just dumb. That's what we're pointing out. We're not like, oh my God, I can't believe it.
Christian Lamar's in the chat. He's backing me up. I didn't come up with al-Baghdadi. That was the president.
Yeah.
That was the president of the United States. Hang on, I'll see if I can take it back. Hang on 1 second.
And he died in a vicious and violent way as a coward prior to so many beheadings, all of which were openly displayed for the world to see. This was all that Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi.
Al-Baghdadi.
Al-Baghdadi, the guy who invented the Veyron. This is an interesting one, James. We're going to have to jump around a little bit here tonight. Don't worry, we've got plenty of gotcha moments that TAV is somewhat pseudo-famous for on a Sunday night. But before we get into that, This one's a little introspective. And this is one of the only times that I've read an article like this from Salon, and I don't know if they're taking the piss or not. And if you don't know what taking the piss means, are they trolling? Is this a troll? Let me show you what I mean.
You know what? Someone, before you get to this, someone pointed out to me the other day that they think that Salon is like the left's version of The Onion. They really think that because if you read every article, it seems like it's parody, but it's not. This is literally, it's like taking the most crazy leftists and giving them licenses to write news articles. It's incredible.
Well, there's a reason why I track this stuff from Salon, Slate, Mother Jones, Vox, and we're getting to Vox later in the show, so stay tuned for that because it's a ripper. But there's a reason that we track this stuff, and we've talked about it on this show before. You'll be amazed how many of the narratives, how many of the angles, how many of the data points start off on this realm, like on this tier. Yep. You know, your Salon, your Slate, your Mother Jones. And then what happens is, yeah, it gets circulated, it gets retweeted, people talk about it, and then the people up on the next level, so maybe like, I don't know, your Huffington Post, Daily KOS, you know, these kinds of places, they then take a more watered-down version of it, and then they publicate it, and then it goes up to your CNNs, your MSNBCs. Next thing you know, it becomes a corporate media talking point. Once it's been stripped out of more, you know, the more edge has been taken off it, but the subtext remains the same. A lot of the corporate media talking points that you see actually start at places like this, believe it or not. You wouldn't think so, but that's the way it goes.
No, this is, you're spot on. Look, the political not pundits, how do I say this? The backroom deal operators, you know, the staffers, the people who actually plant the stories that we've known about for decades, these are who they have their relationships with. They know that if they want to get these things out there, they'll print anything because they're desperate for the money. You can't plant a story if you're some Senate campaign in Hawaii. You're not going to be able to necessarily plant a story in CNN. But the way you plant a story in CNN is first you plant it in Salon and see if it gets traction. You dump all your enemy's dirt in these kinds of publications through back channel, back rooms where there's very little accounting from anybody, including an editor. The editor doesn't even care who your source is. Where'd you get? It's like the National Enquirer of the old school. And then that's how that gets filtered in. You're absolutely right. They use it like a farm system, like Major League Baseball. You got the AAA, you got the AA, and then finally you got the big leagues, right? That's what they're doing.
Yep. And then next thing you know, an article gets written here, and then the next tier up will link to this article, and then it goes another tier up, and then CNN is then quoting places like the Huffington Post as reported in the Huffington Post, and then, you know, the New York Times and the Washington Post then say, well, we saw this item on CNN, which was quoting from the Huffington Post, which was getting it from Vox, which was getting it from Salon. Okay. And then they can turn around and say, well, see, everybody's talking about it, so it must be an issue. All of these publications are covering it, but it's really just coming from one initial source, which is often in these pages. So James is 100% correct. Pardon me. Trump will win again, easily. Liberals simply don't understand what he represents, James. Trump is accelerating American empire toward its doom. Democrats can't stop the historical wheel from turning. Here's the article. I predicted well before the 2016 presidential election that Donald Trump would be elected. I had felt that way ever since he rode down that golden escalator with his rapist invective. He looked like a rapist, James. Ever since he was elected, I also believe that he will be re-elected more easily this time. An illustrative personal anecdote, one of many over the last 3 years. A creative writing PhD I know with tons of debt, whose wife happens to be an undocumented Filipina, became mightily angered. We can't say Filipino anymore. Have you noticed that? Why is it Filipina and not Filipino? Is there a reason for that?
Yeah, well, they're trying to use the feminine version of the word. Yeah, but I just think it's funny. I thought we were
against gendered language. I thought we don't like gendered language. What's going on?
Exactly. And how is his wife undocumented? How are they legally married? But you can't. It's like this is something that just can't happen. It's impossible.
He was a family man, James. austere religious leader, became mightily angered at the promise of student debt cancellation. What about those who have paid their dues by taking out the debt, he asked. No doubt he would refuse a blanket amnesty for illegals too. His darker wife, as he sees it, paid her dues. Columnists at the New York Times are all angry at the possibility of decriminalising of border crossings, healthcare for the undocumented, and the abolition of private insurance. They don't want to do away with Trumpian inhumanity. Do you see what's happening here? Salon is arguing that the people at the New York Times, because they don't want to give free healthcare to anybody on planet Earth, they're saying that the New York Times are inhumane, just like Donald Trump. They're supporting Donald Trump. What? I know. That's why I'm saying, like, is this guy taking the piss? Is he having a go at us here?
He's got to be.
He's got to be. They want the oppression to continue, but without the transparent rhetoric, James. Minus the Trumpian rhetorical overlash, war, empire, violence, hollowness, junk goods, and a junk life are all the people have ever known and all they want. We need communist utopia now. We need communist utopia yesterday.
I'm sorry.
To do away with this.
The diction in this writing is causing
it's beautiful, isn't it?
My head to hurt. It's what the fuck? What is the Trumpian overlash? What the fuck does
the
that
Trumpian
even mean?
overlash? Yeah. Well, you've got to show everybody how smart you are, James. You've got to bedazzle the ordinary peasant, because he actually refers to uneducated people later in this piece as, being Donald Trump's people. He doesn't get it. Historical movement in long cycles can't be short-circuited. As we can see in the resistance of the liberal elite toward Bernie Sanders, the only candidate who could beat Trump, versus the stampede toward Elizabeth Warren, who provides a safe alternative and will surely lose. James, Elizabeth Warren isn't radical enough. She's the elite's pin-up girl. She's the establishment pin-up girl. They love her. But what kind of fascist doesn't want to start a war in 3 years? Trump doesn't need war. He has brought the war home by making us confront our emptiness directly, James. He is the catalyst we needed at this time, and he is fulfilling his purpose beautifully. America is exhausted, which the liberal elites don't get. So this guy is actually
like
saying
AOC's campaign manager right here. That's why this is written this way.
He's saying that Trump is accelerating the downfall, which will then precipitate socialism.
This writer doesn't even support Bernie Sanders. This is the kind of writer that supports AOC for president. That's what we're reading here. Now I understand why he's written it this way. This is the pseudo-intellectual, supercilious nature of people that own giant thesauruses.
And what kind of huckster is he, James? The author asks. He constantly keeps changing his mind, which is not a character flaw, but the essence of his deal-making. See, he kind of gets it, but he kind of, I think, misreads the motivation for it, right? He kind of gets things right. It's a very funny article. That's what I might tweet this out and just see what people think of it. America can't find a better deal, from the New Deal to the Fair Deal to the imaginary Green New Deal. So he's hitting AOC.
Right.
Now he's all over the place, this guy. A landscape of lost opportunities and blighted dreams, so contingent honor, betrayed promises, and infinite self-cancellation constitute the only kind of deal-making possible. And unlike on The Apprentice, there can be no winner at the end, while the rest get fired because of the endless even I'm struggling. Prevarication. Jesus, I've never seen that word before. I need to school up. Saying two things at the same... So he even has to say what it means, because he knows 90% of the audience is going to be like, what the fuck is that? That's a time when you don't put it in.
Prevarication is what you say, like, look, pick a side, motherfucker.
Pick a side. You say, now say it that way. I don't have a problem. Often diametrically opposite is what constitutes deal-making. We better get used to it. It is the end point to a century of liberal social planning, James. And hopefully the end point of putting, what would you say, $50 words in the place of a quarter? To be totally adrift, Trump is saying, is to have total freedom. The empire embraces its most recent eruption of vulgarity, barbarism, and eco-destruction as a welcome development, or at least the dispossessed to, if not the meritocrats. To move beyond the dead language of liberal political correctness. So see, he's saying PC needs to go.
We agree.
PC's dead. Oh, right, we agree with him. Which all the Democratic candidates suffer from is a great service. I don't know where this guy's coming from.
What?
Trump is preparing us for the imminent turmoil of the coming decades, concluding in secession and fragmentation by mid-century with the kind of language the empire needs now. He's reading history well, only too well, far better than his ideological opponents, the neoliberal globalizers or the democratic socialists. Like, I think he's trying to be sarcastic, but he's actually making very good points. Like, by pretending to be a Trump sycophant, he's actually making a lot of sense here, sarcastically, unironically.
Maybe that's the problem. The problem is that this is a stone Democrat, and he was really high, and he was trying to emulate what he thinks people that supported Trump would actually say, and that's why this article has absolutely no consistent thread. We don't know where this guy is coming from. There's absolutely no starting point. You're like, what? Those two things don't go together.
Not one of Trump's opponents, James, is prepared to say that power is America. Brute, unforgiving, no second chances power. This kind of power requires a base removed from liberal education. There you go. The uneducated. I love my uneducated. I love the uneducated. I want them all to own an Al Bugatti one day. He reforms language every day in his tweets, which emanate from our deepest unconscious, such as when liberal stand-up comedians turn out to be racist and misogynist in their revealing moments. He's giving it to everybody, even the late-night comedians, James. Can't get enough. But it's not going to happen because he was never the bearer of a virus, which implies something alien. He is the perfect mirror. Let me go back one more. Trump's attack on the media, the breathing tube for an empty liberal consumerism that died long ago, is the most welcome move to his fervent supporters. You can't believe a word you see. You have to create your own reality, which the internet helped bring about starting in the 1990s. Consider the real scandal of Joe Biden's son's corruption, already noted matter-of-factly in leading newspapers, versus the impeachable scandal of just talking, airing out possible deals to land political opponents in trouble. Torture, assassination, deportation, ecocide are all within the pale for the resistance, for those who would like to replace him with an acceptable alternative who will take the empire back to where it was.
Dude,
but it's not going to happen because he was never the bearer of a virus, which implies something alien. He is the perfect mirror. Just as Nixon followed Lyndon Johnson, Reagan followed Carter, and Bush followed Clinton, in performing not so much an oscillation but an exaggerated return to form. Empires, heavy and difficult to maneuver, don't engage in circular or sideways motions, James. Trump is the accelerant to the endpoint that empire needs now. Just as Reagan and Bush served their functions earlier, and in that sense, he is a true man of the people. You don't beat a man of the people electorally, you just don't.
Wow.
What do you make of that?
What the? This guy, this is an incredible piece. It's written so tortuously that
I'm tweeting that out right now.
Nobody can understand it. Like, it's so tortuously written that people aren't even going to be able to absorb that. Like, we could study that for a week and try to figure out what the hell they were trying to say, because he's all over the place. We don't know what the position is or even the point he's trying to make, other than the final line.
I think he's trying to be sarcastic. I think that it's a whole sarcastic piece. And by saying the good things that Donald Trump is doing, he's saying them as bad things. But he's saying that this is the guy we need right now because this is going to accelerate us closer to the utopia that we imagine, that being socialism, right? He thinks this is the guy that's going to bring it all down. He's going to accelerate it to a point. That's why the bad things are good things.
It's like it's written from a place where he gets a lot of the points. Like you said, there's a lot of things where he's showing he's just not understanding where it's coming from. He doesn't understand the motivation. He doesn't understand the start point. And that's true for a lot of the things we hear from the left. It's like, we need to take out the swamp. Yes, we agree. The problem is we disagree on what the swamp means. The problem is we disagree on who are the corrupt. So you think it's Trump, and we know it was the prior administration, and that's going to come out in evidence. And it's the form of evidence. It's not belief. And that's the difference. And so the kind of the, how would you say this? The global consciousness knows that there's a swamp. There's a deep state. Everybody knows that it exists. We just disagree on who it is. And so that's kind of how this writing is, right? Is that he's getting a lot of the factors correct, but he's not understanding what the motivation is. He doesn't get it, right? But I think the final line, though, kind of sells what he's doing, is he's trying to freak out the left. Like he's trying to freak them out. Because he's saying at the end, the very last line is that you don't get rid of this guy electorally, right? So he's exposing what his main point was right there, where you always want to end on the kill shot. And the kill shot in that article is that you don't get rid of a guy like this electorally. So he's writing it to the very extremists of the left that are basically saying, we need to wipe out everybody because we don't know who's on our side. It's very crazy, but if you think about it, it makes sense.
He's saying that Trump owns the dispossessed. Trump owns the disenfranchised. Trump owns the people who have been forgotten. And that's a shame because we're supposed to own them. We're supposed to have those people in our bank. You know, we're supposed to have those people in our pocket, but Trump's got them. So we're not going to beat him because he's won the messaging game. And he's saying falsely. Now, you would say rightly, but people on the left say falsely, right?
Right.
I've got another one here for you that could be a little bit of fun. I know you'll appreciate this, James. Whistleblowers walk among us like angels. Now one has gotten in Trump's head. Whistleblowers in his head. Okay. The whistleblower is a tall man, about 6'4", and only a few years out of graduate school. Maybe. Or maybe the whistleblower is a woman, a long-time analyst close to retirement. The whistleblower is a Democrat. Maybe. Or maybe the whistleblower is a Republican who voted for Donald Trump. Regardless, the president would very much like to know the identity of the whistleblower. Who's the whistleblower? Trump said at his October 17 rally in Dallas. Who is the whistleblower? Who is the whistleblower? We have to know. Can I put my cynical political hat back on again just for a second and say that I suspect, and I could be wrong, I suspect that Trump already very much knows everything there is to know about the so-called whistleblower. And when Donald Trump makes pronouncements about who is the whistleblower to his rally goers and to the press, it's more to keep the conversation about the whistleblower and the identity of the whistleblower and the fact that we don't know anything about them so as to cast doubt over any of the material that comes out from said whistleblower. Because if Donald Trump comes out now and names the whistleblower, one, he looks like a bad guy who's trying to target somebody and bully somebody. So he can't do that politically, right? So all he can do is get everybody else asking that. And that's how and I suspect he knows who it is.
Yeah,
I suspect he knows everything around it.
Yeah, I said, yeah, it's Adam Schiff. We all know it's Adam
Schiff. And who is this whistleblower? His name is Bradham Tiff. Yeah, that'll do. Shadam Tiff. That's his name. Al Bugatti. That's the guy. I'm not getting sick of that. Sorry. Just going to keep hammering that one. We know plenty already about what matters. In August, a member of the intelligence community relayed an urgent concern, Jay, urgent, to relevant authorities. In dealing with Ukraine, that person said, President Trump is using the power of his office to advance his personal interests to solicit interference from a foreign country in the 2020 US election. The whistleblower has gotten into the president's head. In a cabinet meeting Monday, Trump referenced the whistleblower 15 times, James. 15 times. How about that? These whistleblowers, they have them. They're like angels, okay? I didn't even know that. I should have read that before. In a way, whistleblowers are like angels. Washington Post, ladies and gentlemen. God, well, I just thank God. I believe in angels and I believe in whistleblowers. And I just want to say, God bless those whistleblowers, little voices sitting on our shoulders, steering us in the right direction. They're just austere religious folk like that Al Bugatti fella. Looking after the well-being of government and corporations on behalf of the public. Yes, James, we love the deep state. We love our whistleblowers. They're good guys, tremendous people, great people. They only care about the community. They want to do what's best for the American people, which may never be, we may never be aware of their existence, let alone their names. They report waste, fraud, and abuse on a daily basis. They're the best. James, they're the best people. They're the best people. All across. Why did Barack Obama lock so many of them up if they're so good?
Oh, or fire them, as in the case of Robin Grips. That's right.
Yeah, why did that happen? I'm not sure. I guess they went from demons to angels just like that. Well, we do believe in forgiveness, don't we? That's fair enough. Federal whistleblowers made over 3,300 disclosures in fiscal years 2017 and 2018. Members of the intelligence community made 563 outreaches to their own whistleblowing hotline. There's a hotline. I didn't even know this. In fiscal year 2018. Why are we only hearing about one of them? Would that be enough to suggest that most of these whistleblower claims are false? Or at least falsifiable?
You know what the biggest...
563 people, you say?
To me, that's one of the biggest tells that there's tons of shit that's fucked up our government so much, is if you think about it, the way they have set up and written, and I think this was by design, by the way, because this is all recent history stuff, is that, I mean, literally, this is all like Democrat policy stuff, is that if you think about it, the entire government now is a giant rat squad. It is absolutely identical to communist socialist practices of having your kids tell on their parents. Like, literally, this is what's going on in everywhere in the government. So that mental poison of everything you do is being monitored, everything you do is being tracked, every decision you make, it causes this inaction. It causes no decisions ever to be made, and it causes everyone to go along to get along. I want you to really think about that. Everybody in our government right now, and this comes back to, again, it goes right back to us allowing, in I think it's 91, the unionization of government employees. Okay? Before 1991, it did not exist. We were able to fire government employees. You can no longer do that. Thank you to you people on the left and some on the right. Believe me, I remember the right was being sold this, that, we got to let the people have the same equal rights as everybody else. And they allowed them to unionize. That put too much protections. And now you see in recent history now we've converted to complete leftism, and everybody needs to narc on everybody else. That guy stole a box of paper clips, fire his ass. But of course, nobody gets fired. They just get written up, and the rat ends up the one that gets ostracized. So you have this culture of, it's just wide open, tell on your parents so we can get rid of the dissidents. I mean, it's literally that bad. That's what's going on right now in our government. And so that's why you see these quote unquote, just whistleblowers that just think it's okay. We'll just release everything we want, anything we want to the newspapers, thanks to the way that people reacted to things like Snowden, the way that people reacted to other, NSA declassifications, even WikiLeaks. I'm not saying that some of this doesn't need to happen. And in many ways, you have to say, well, thank God we found out about these things. because it's what allowed us to vote for Donald Trump. But at the other side of the coin, you have to worry about, is what we're doing completely self-defeating? And you can see that evidence in what you're seeing in the newspapers.
Well, James, whistleblowers might be angels, but they wouldn't be anything without a brave corporate press willing to stand up and speak truth to power. And what we don't like is when the corporate press, begins to become, say, the propaganda arm of a particular side of politics. As you all know, James, ladies and gentlemen, it's long been, criticized of Donald Trump that Fox News, for example, is merely the propaganda arm of the Trump White House. And I have some sympathy with that view. But so I'm very pleased to report the good people of Newsbusters have put together this very short little clip displaying to us just how down the line, how fair and balanced the rest of the corporate media is, James, how they're bravely standing up to politicians and asking the hard questions and never, ever, ever getting caught parroting the exact same talking points from those political parties themselves. Gesundheit, by the way. Gesundheit.
Refresh that.
The actions of the Trump presidency revealed the dishonorable fact of the president's betrayal of his oath of office.
The president has been exposed violating his oath of office.
The President of the United States has betrayed his oath of office.
Violations of his oath to the Constitution.
Unprecedented breach of the oath of office.
Betrayals of his oath of office.
The president has admitted enough. We have got enough information at this point.
He's already confirmed what he's done in broad daylight.
See, it used to be the job of the corporate press to question what politicians say, not just repeat what politicians say.
Right.
They've gone from reporters to repeaters, James. Now they just repeat what these politicians say. And unquestioned loyalty to what these people are saying. No evidence provided, no context provided. They just repeat the same talking points.
We've basically got a confession.
Has already confessed to this crime.
The president has already admitted. The president admits he did it.
The White House and the State Department continue to...
It's interesting because the question here is who's leading who exactly?
Right.
Who's doing it first? I'm not even entirely sure that it's always the Democrats are leading the charge on this. I think they repeat what the corporate media is saying because I wonder what they watch when they get home. They're not watching Trust and Verify. You know what I mean? They're not watching Boogie Bumper. They're not watching James R. They're watching CNN. They're watching MSNBC.
Orchestrate this massive cover-up.
We are watching a cover-up by the President of the United States.
They've been in the business of trying to cover up.
Implicated in a cover-up.
There's a cover-up.
The cover-up, the attempted cover-up.
To interfere with the Congress's ability to call before it relevant witnesses will be considered as evidence of obstruction.
Trump's strategy, it's pretty clear. Obstruct, deflect, confuse.
Obstructing justice, refusing to comply with the congressional inquiry.
It is obstruction of justice. It's bribery.
A lot of the committees have documented obstruction of justice.
All of this obstruction from the White House and from the president specifically.
He's using the abuse of power.
Every element of the presidency.
The heart of the abuse of power.
This gross abuse of power. You could say it was an abuse of power.
There has been an abuse of power. Abuse of power.
And that is an obviously impeachable abuse of power.
There you have it. Well done. James, don't you love it when the corporate media goes out on a limb to question the things coming out of Democrat Party mouths?
Yeah.
Is this just another reason? Is this another reason why, in that first article we read, the article we read from Salon, where people are disenfranchised, people no longer agree with, the quote-unquote fake news, that's one of the most fervent things that people get excited about when Donald Trump attacks the corporate press. It's little things like that even if you don't even need to see a clip like that. I have this, my theory is people pick this shit up on a subconscious level. And they might not know the mechanics of what's happening. And we like to show that sometimes, the mechanics of the manipulation, how they're using language in a certain way to get you to think a certain thing, in an underhanded fashion. But I think it's so overt now and it's so over the top and it's so insane that it's like, say, remember the Matrix movie, for example, okay? Now, there's a scene where Morpheus is strapped down to a chair and the agent is telling Morpheus, in the first program of the Matrix, we made it to be a utopia. We did everything perfect, but your feeble human mind couldn't accept the programming because you're programmed to understand suffering. It's how you define yourselves. So we made everything perfect for you and you rejected it. I see that in this, It's so overt and so over the top, the manipulation, that even if you don't understand the mechanics of how it's being done to you, you pick it up on a subconscious level like, hey, I'm getting worked here.
Yeah.
Someone's having a go at me. You know what I mean? They're insulting me. I can't put my finger on it, but it just doesn't feel right. I know that sounds a bit ridiculous, but
you're right. And that's why if you look at the most popular movies of our lifetimes, every one of them were somehow really relatable and rooted in realities. Like you can look at Gone with the Wind. You can look at the Godfather series. You can look at Sopranos. You look at the most popular programs ever and those movies, The Matrix. All of these things were rooted in reality. Even if you didn't understand that there was an absolute 100% real world relationship to what that fantasy movie was giving you, you felt it. You could connect with it viscerally. And that is why those movies did so well, is that you could understand it from your personal experiences and you could relate to the character on screen, even though that character was in a galaxy far, far away.
I've got a great one here that was sent through by Charles Norris Jr. No, it's not Chuck Norris. Pardon me. Sorry, Larry Norris. Larry Norris is a fan of the show. Al Bugatti and Chuck Norris, big fans, tremendous people, very fine people, both believed in things. You'll like this one, James. For voters, more government is a problem, not a solution. This is from Rasmussen polls. Voters aren't nearly as convinced as candidates for the Democratic presidential nomination that more government is the answer. Again, we're going to break our own shoulders by patting ourselves on the back here on this show for saying the same thing that we've been saying for the last 12 months in regards to how out of touch the leadership of the Democrat Party is in this Democratic presidential nomination race. In fact, 59% of likely US voters now agree with former President Ronald Reagan that, quote, government is not the solution to our problem, government is the problem. A new Rasmussen Reports national telephone and online survey found that just 26% disagree with the statement from Reagan's first inaugural address in 1981. 16% are undecided. The survey of 1,000 likely voters was conducted on October 15, 2019 by Rasmussen. The margin of sampling error is plus minus 3 percentage points with 95% level of confidence. Field work for all Rasmussen surveys is conducted by Pulse Opinion Research, blah, 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 blah. So I don't have like the guts of it here, unless I can go see here. Yes. Do you agree with this statement? Government is not the solution to our problem. Government is the problem too. Which worries you more, that the size of the federal government will be cut too much or cut not enough? It turns out that 73% of Republicans or thereabouts agree with this statement, which is to be expected, but 46% of Democrats also agree with the statement. And around 60-something% of independents agree with the statement that government is the problem and not the solution. And I figure when you throw all of those numbers in together, that's how you get Ronald Reagan winning 49 states against Walter Mondale, right? Like that would be enough to do it. If half of the Democrats agree with Donald Trump, then the Democrats get wiped out. Now, of course, the problem here is I'm not sure that Donald Trump necessarily agrees with the statement himself because he's increased government spending in a whole lot of areas, which is something the libertarian crowd has been against for a while. I mean, he's up welfare spending, for example.
Yeah, I would point out that although that is correct, the debt to GDP ratio has lessened consistently off every movement that he's done.
True.
So that is a big factor to say that revenues are still up, even though spending is up as well. We're still handling that very well, is what I'm saying.
Okay, where are we going to go here? I tell you what, I think this is the right thing that I had here. Sorry, this is very... Okay, yep, here we go. All right. This is a fun one. All the president's women review. Donald Trump, sexual predator, James. It's late. Is it late enough to go blue on the show? That's a tremendous photo of the president, isn't it? Well done. Congratulations on pulling that one out. I approve. Barry Levine and Monica El Faizi parachute into the netherworld of weaponized libido, James. That is the life of the 45th president. Yeah. I'm going to hit you with a couple of Scud missiles, okay, babies? Salaciousness abounds. Their book is lurid, informative, and aptly subtitled Donald Trump and the Making of a Predator. James, he's a predator. Oh. I just want to go down to this bit here. On top of that, there is Cohen's guilty plea that essentially paints the president, a.k.a. Individual 1, as an unindicted co-conspirator in a campaign finance scheme to keep Karen McDougal, a former Playboy model, Woman 1, and Daniels, Woman 2, out of the headlines. The plan worked well enough. The two women were neither seen nor heard until the presidential race was over. Among the book's more questionable vignettes is a story of a younger Trump nearly 40 years ago, James. Wait to hear this. This is fantastic stuff. I've got to get this book. I must have it. Frequenting a sex club maintained by the mob and pursuing a threesome with a porn star and a young girl. The authors have failed to find the two women or a possible black and white tape. Beyond that, the building in question has since been demolished and the mob kingpin behind the club was purportedly whacked in 1986. The sole eyewitness is named John Tino, and his rap sheets include convictions for larceny, fraud, and forgery. Yet Trump's forays into construction and casinos, his nexus to organized crime, and his friendship with Jeffrey Epstein. He's a friend of Jeffrey. Big pal of Jeffrey. Together confer a patina of plausibility that on a tale that would otherwise be close to non-existent. The authors stand by Tino. The book also raises the possibility Trump may have left in his wake more than a few terminated pregnancies. He's an abortion baby too. David K. Johnston, a Pulitzer Prize winner and Trump biographer, is quoted as saying that several name brand women have had pregnancies and abortions courtesy of Trump.
Name brand women? What are they, fucking shoes? What the hell are you talking about?
I was thinking Martha Stewart. That's, you know.
Oh my God.
Celine Dion, maybe?
Wow.
I don't know.
Name brand.
Yeah.
Nike.
And they've all had pregnancies and abortions apparently because of Donald Trump. Although the author quotes, I don't have the medical records to prove it, but they've told girlfriends about it. Oh, well, I mean, throw away the... That's all we need. I told my girlfriends.
Isn't that the same shit they tried to do to Kavanaugh? Well, I don't have any proof, and everybody that was at the party says it didn't happen, but I told my girlfriends about it.
It was working so well until the girlfriends came out and said, I don't know what the fuck she's talking about. I don't know.
Exactly.
I don't know. I don't remember. All the President's Women also examines evangelical support for Trump, James, and Trump's religious life, because, of course, we need to chip away at that religious support. One source is quoted as saying evangelical backing stems from Trump's judicial selections. Another attributes it to the loss of what? Guess what? Protestant privilege in America. Protestant privilege in America is a thing of the past. On that score, Pew Research recently announced in the US, decline of Christianity continues at rapid pace. Just over 2 in 5 Americans are Protestants, and evangelical Protestantism is now the dominant branch. At the same time, the religiously unaffiliated comprise more than a quarter of the country. Do you see how asinine this is?
Yeah.
They're saying that President Trump's support from the evangelical community comes from the fact that less people are Christians. They're admitting that the Protestants can't keep Donald Trump out of office, right? So they're admitting that the culture has gotten so far away from Christianity that it makes it possible for a guy like Donald Trump to get elected. But are they the ones that want Christianity to be done away with in the public space anyway?
Exactly.
So we're going to get more Donald Trumps then, aren't we? Yeah. So the next guy won't even have to lie about having sex with a porn star. He'll make it part of his campaign pitch. No, I dogged her. I dogged her friends. I had sex with the whole damn team. You know what I'm saying? It was a beautiful night. Tremendous people. Wonderful people. Got this one from Politico for you. As we start to wind it up, thanks for joining us. You're on Trust and Verify. Blowback from Trump appearance throws HBCU forum into chaos, James. What the hell is the HBCU? Did you have any idea about this thing?
I don't know exactly where the article is going to go, and now I can't remember, but I have definitely heard of the HBCU before. It's I'm going to fuck it up, so I'd rather not say.
Oh, come on. James is a big fan of the HBCU, folks.
That's right.
Tell us about the HBCU, James. What does it stand for?
It's a tremendous organization. I've been invited to speak there many times before. They're definitely really good people. I don't remember anything about them.
HBC. Habu Baghdadi cares for you, perhaps? A weekend forum for presidential candidates descended into chaos, James. Chaos. Saturday, after the group hosting the event gave President Donald Trump its, quote, Bipartisan Justice Award. Yes. Chaos. Sparking protests and a potential boycott of the event by Democratic presidential candidates. Listen, this is the best. California Senator Kamala Harris was first to announce she would no longer participate in the forum hosted by the 2020 Bipartisan Justice Center, James, which was set to take place across 3 days at Benedict College, a historically black college here in South Carolina. Oh, it's Kamala. Oh, Kamala. Other Democratic campaigns, 10 candidates were originally scheduled to appear on Saturday and Sunday, also considered pulling out of the event and participating in a competing forum. Harris agreed to rejoin the forum Saturday after the 2020 Bipartisan Justice Center was removed as a sponsor of the candidate events because they wanted to give Donald Trump a Bipartisan Justice Award, James. They removed them as a sponsor of the event. Listen to this. Listen to Kamala Harris up on her high horse, and then I'm going to show you how ridiculous this is, even for Democrats. I refuse to come with the previous sponsorship of this event because, frankly, Benedict students were excluded. And also, I said I would not come just because I couldn't believe that Donald Trump would be given an award as it relates to criminal justice reform. I know we have very short memories, ladies and gentlemen. And Kamala Harris may, have an agenda here, obviously, that she needs to attack Donald Trump at every point. But I need you to understand this quote from Kamala Harris, just to understand how detached she is. I just couldn't believe that Donald Trump would be given an award as it relates to criminal justice reform. I know somebody who disagrees with her. Van Jones, ladies and gentlemen. Have a listen to this. From a few months ago, because you're racking your brain, you're Kamala Harris. Why would President Trump be getting praised by a bipartisan organization for criminal justice reform? Let's cast our minds back, shall we?
More breaking news tonight, and it's practically the definition of news when the
definition of news.
Happens. The Senate tonight taking bipartisan action on something substantial, overwhelmingly passing a major prison reform bill. The First Step Act eases federal sentencing for nonviolent offenders, aims to reduce repeat offending, and expands early release programs. The vote was 87-12. All the votes against the bill were by Republicans, but many Republicans voted for it. Those who voted against complained the reforms were too lenient and could allow dangerous criminals back into society prematurely. The bill was backed by the White House and negotiated with the help of Jared Kushner, President Trump's son-in-law and senior advisor. The House is expected to take up the bill on Thursday.
How significant do you think this is? By the way, one of your partners in working on this was Jared Kushner.
Jared Kushner.
Remember, James, why would President Trump be given a bipartisan award for criminal justice reform? Kamala Harris doesn't understand it. She's got no fucking idea.
Yeah.
Whose father went to prison and who fought on this as hard as that. This is history. This is history. Right now, you're witnessing history on the floor of the U.S. Senate. There's a Christmas miracle underway.
Where
for the first time in a generation, Republicans and Democrats are arm in arm tonight saying, we are sending too many people to prison. They're coming out bitter and not better. We want to make a tremendous difference. I want to say, Hakeem Jeffries on the left, Jared Kushner and Donald Trump on the right have brought together a coalition like I've never seen. You've got
the Donald Trump-led coalition, James, bipartisan criminal justice reform. Kamala Harris has got no idea why a bipartisan organization would hand Donald Trump an award for criminal justice reform. Also, let's go to this one from more recently. Tulsi Gabbard doesn't know why Kamala Harris would have a problem with this.
Senator Harris says she's proud of her record as a prosecutor and that she'll be a prosecutor president, but I'm deeply concerned about this record. There are too many examples to cite, but she put over 1,500 people in jail for marijuana violations and then laughed about it when she was asked if she ever smoked marijuana. She blocked evidence. She blocked evidence that would have freed an innocent man from death row until the courts forced her to do so. She kept people in prison beyond their sentences to use them as cheap labor for the state of California. And she fought to keep cash bail system in place that impacts poor people in the worst kind of way.
Thank you, Congress.
James, this tart, Kamala Harris, has the raw audacity to stand there, even when even people like Van Jones say Donald Trump has created a Christmas miracle with bipartisan support for criminal justice reform, and one of her own comrades gets up on stage, on the national stage, and puts her very, very shady record as a prosecutor in front of the world for them to pick apart. This tart has the audacity to get up on her high horse and say, I refuse to support an event that isn't serious about criminal justice reform. They're even giving Donald Trump an award. How many Democrats do you think pay attention to that? Like, isn't that an own goal or what?
They don't. The Democrats don't care. They just don't.
You're right.
Because most of those Democrats the ones that were truly the old school Democrats, they've already moved to being independents, and they're already voting for Donald Trump. They get it. They see the corruption. They see what's going on. We've got some of the trolls that follow us, and that's why we get a kind of a warped sense of what the left actually thinks, because they're just idiots. I mean, for example, there's one now in here, Dragon Pussy, and Dragon Pussy literally just said Tulsi's getting money from Putin. I mean, you're like, what, dude? Get the fuck out of here!
I like just like in a paper bag, or
yeah, I guess.
Is it a check? Is she getting American dollars or rubles?
I think it's rubles. Yeah, absolutely. Rubles? I mean, it's insane. But the funny thing is that actually it's not funny, but these people are eating themselves constantly, nonstop. And here's a case in point. Breaking news right now, Boogie. I know that we probably don't have this because it's literally happening while we're on the air. And thank you to the chat room, by the way, for informing me that Katie Hill, the campaign of the House of Representatives representative that Boogie admires most for having the balls to brush their hair naked, of the staffers, and put those.
Don't forget smoke bongs. Don't forget smoke bongs and have group sex.
Yeah,
she's got my vote.
She's resigning. She is resigning. But this is what I want to be clear about. So I want everybody to understand. She's not resigning because of the naked stuff. I want to be very clear, because here is where the real deal and the rubber meets the road. Coming from the Daily Mail in the UK, Katie Hill paid $5,000 campaign bonus to an alleged male aide lover. So she's resigning so she doesn't go to prison for campaign finance violations, because you can't pay off people from your campaign budget. I mean, it's just that's what this is about. This has nothing to do with the naked photos. This has nothing to do with, brushing someone's hair. This has nothing to do with any of that. It has to do with corruption. Like, she literally used campaign money to pay off people that were alleging sexual assault and things like that. So that's what you're seeing. It's in the news. And by the way, the Daily Mail does not support Donald Trump. So once again, you have failed, Dragon Pussy, because we only use left-wing sources on Trust and Verify. They're your sources.
Yeah, look, James, she might be corrupt, but she's corrupt in the best possible way, as far as I'm concerned. Thank you for the memories. Thank you for the memories, Katie Hill. You will be missed. I thought this was fun just before we get into the hammering tonight, James. Jeff Zucker out on the trail doing one of these little meet and greets. Notice how they call this little event Citizenship, Citizen CNN. Obviously trying to take a bit of citizen journalism cachet, right? Citizen CNN, we're the citizens out there on the beat. So in the aftermath of the Project Veritas videos that had Jeff Zucker, the president of CNN, literally directing his staff what to say and what to write about, something that has been a very big no-no in newsrooms forever, for as long as there's been any semblance of a free press, taking direction from upstairs has been a big no-no. It's a big ethical faux pas in the media world. Jeff Zucker was like, no. We just want you talking about impeachment all the time, constantly. We had high-level staffers at CNN saying that Jeff Zucker has a personal vendetta against Donald Trump. They also say that they hate doing it. They hate writing about Donald Trump constantly. They want to do dogged journalism, but then Jeff Zucker, quote, gets on the fucking phone and tells you what to say. So, I mean, you know, we could say, oh, it's all a conspiracy theory. The film was edited, blah, blah, blah. So that's obviously not going to do good enough this time. Jeff Zucker decided to sit down with the man with the most impeccable record when it comes to truth in journalism, Brian Stelter, and explain. They decided to do this little tour in order to, I imagine, redirect the news and try to claw back some of that credibility that went flying out the window last week. Let's have a little listen to Jeff.
His aides or his fans, right? Sean Duffy's a new contributor on CNN, and some of the same complaints are being made about.
The question is being asked, so many people are complaining to CNN that we're hiring too many pro-Trump commentators, James. There's too many pro-Trump people on CNN. We need to change that, apparently.
His appearances.
So I get that as well. Look, I think there is a lot. Listen, there's a lot of emotion around this president and this presidency. People ask, why do you pay people to come on and support him? That's what you're referring to.
No, Jeff, no. People are asking, Jeff, why do you get on the phone every morning at 9 o'clock and tell people to write about impeachment? Why do you get on the phone every day at 9 o'clock and tell your staff what to write about Donald Trump? That's what they're asking. They're not asking, why do you hire so many pro-Trump people at CNN? That's not a real thing. That doesn't happen. That never happened.
One is five-term Congressman Sean Duffy out of Wisconsin, who we just added to our roster of Trump voices on CNN. I get a lot of criticism from folks who want to know, why do you pay people to come on and talk in support of the president?
This is how you redirect it, right? Yeah. Because we have the videos of them going wall to wall 24 hours a day anti-Donald Trump. So what do? You come out with a straw man argument to make this bullshit little chat and talk about, well, people are complaining to us all the time that we don't hire enough pro-Trump people. And here is one that we just hired last week, just out of coincidence, by the way. Sheer coincidence.
It's my belief that we should represent out there what those who support Donald Trump think.
The president of CNN, ladies and gentlemen. Have you ever heard so much BS in your entire life?
Now they say, well, just have them come on as a guest and don't pay them. Look, it is hard. It is hard to find people who will come on and support. You don't pay them. He's saying nobody supports Donald Trump, so it's really hard to find somebody. The president's point of view.
Only if you pay them.
Yeah, that's right. That's what I'm saying. He's literally saying that we have to pay them or they won't come on CNN.
Yeah, because they're unscrupulous. They're money-hungry capitalist pigs, James.
And so my view has been we have several very ardent pro-Trump supporters on, because we're running CNN US, we're running CNN International, we're running HLN. Yeah. We need those voices, and I think there's a place for them.
Wow, he's fair and balanced, Jeff Zucker, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, it's like an alternate reality. Again, literally last week, you heard Jeff Zucker's voice on the telephone saying, I don't care, it's all got to be about impeachment. Yep. You had high-level staff at CNN saying Jeff Zucker has a personal vendetta against Trump, and he tells us to write anti-Trump stuff all the time.
Have you noticed every time there's a CNN scandal about CNN, it's Brian Stelter does a little show that's a puff piece about the person, like, oh, Don Lemon, let's have him on the couch. Oh, Anderson Cooper, let's have him on the couch. Oh, Jeff Zucker. Their answer is, let's just blow smoke up everybody's ass and we'll obfuscate it. And the only people that will cover it is CNN. It's incredible to watch what their plan is every time. They think that if they use Brian Stelter to give a false and leading question to the guest, that the guest's false and leading answer will somehow convince the American people. That wasn't my voice. It was a deep fake. You didn't hear what you thought you heard. What?
Never happened.
Never happened.
No, people, I mean, there are some crazy... James, there are some crazy conspiracy theorists out there circulating some edited videotape of apparently Jeff Zucker having some kind of vendetta against the president. This couldn't be further from the truth. In fact, we get complaints all the time here at CNN that we hire too many pro-Trump people. That's the reality. That's what everybody's upset about. You see? Go back to bed.
The crazy liberals that watch CNN are upset if they hear one thing in support of Donald Trump. Yeah. That's right. That's how vitriolic and absolutely fucking insane CNN viewers are. We
absolutely
put up with this torture because it's fun.
It's fun. It's funny. Comedy's dying, but the comedy in the corporate press is going from strength to strength as far as I'm concerned. Speaking of which, James, let's hammer it. Let's hammer it home.
Let's hammer it. Shit, caught me flat-footed as usual.
Stop the hammering.
It's a twofer tonight, James, because I need to set up the clip with this article from the New York Times. Human scum, lynching, and Trump's tortured English, James. The president needs a thesaurus and a therapist, though not necessarily in that order. See how clever that was? Very clever. You campaign in poetry according to a popular saying and govern in prose. Donald Trump will be impeached in doggerel, his own. The other day, he turned to the bounteous trove of English language for a pejorative worthy of his critics' awfulness, at least as he sees it. He decided on, quote, human scum. Human scum. He sought to capture the horror and injustice befalling him. What he came up with was lynching. There's being crude with language, there's being loose with it, and then there's being Trump, who uses words the way a toddler does, marbles, grabbing the ones that are most bluntly colourful and tossing them into the air just because he can. Again, we'll say this, if Donald Trump is really courting the vote of the non-college arts graduate, James, then there's an old saying in sales that you need to speak the language of the buyer. And I wonder how many people read the New York Times and appreciate, glowing, extravagant prose in its opinion pages, as opposed to people who just straight talk. I would suggest the people on the New York Times side of the ledger might be in the minority. Might be, just maybe. There's been Trump is as inept at English as he is at governing. He's oxymoronic, a nativist who can't really speak his native tongue, James. He's not a good communicator, you see. Too harsh? I direct you to perfect. That is how over and over he has characterized his telephone conversation with the president of the Ukraine, and seldom has a term existed in such tension with truth. Tension with truth. Perfect is Nadia Comaneci on the uneven bars at the 1976 Olympics. What a relatable reference. Perfect is Frank Sinatra singing the summer wind. I couldn't agree more with that statement. Perfect is not an insistence that a foreign government smear a political rival when you're just emerging from a 2-year investigation into whether you had another foreign government do precisely that. But then Trump seems to have placed his dictionary on the same unreachable shelf where his conscience gathers dust. It's very profound imagery. As the impeachment inquiry intensifies and the evidence against him accumulates, all of which hasn't been voted on yet, just thought I'd throw that in there. His vocabulary becomes more perverse in its estrangement from reality, in its desperation, in its broken record repetitiveness, in its sheer clumsiness. The screeching of the raccoons in Central Park is more coherent and less feral, James. It's good, isn't it? They're merely nervous when my dog approaches. Trump is petrified as Nancy Pelosi and Adam Schiff close in. He's terrified, James. Crazy Nancy, he said at a recent rally in Dallas, where his epic self-pity and all-consuming grudges took center stage. Quote, think of that crazy Nancy. She's crazy. And shifty shift. How about this guy? He makes up my conversation, which was perfect. He makes up my conversation. He says what I said, and it doesn't play well because it was perfect. Give the president a thesaurus and a therapist, though not necessarily in that order. He added, the do-nothing Democrats have betrayed our country, and that great betrayal is over. We are finally again, and we've been doing it now for almost 3 years. Doing what? Again, how? This wasn't a speech, it was a puzzle. Can you believe when we've been doing this for 3 years? Can you believe it? I've been a politician for 3 years. I can't believe that. Trust me, President Trump, your incredulity is no match for mine. So he's arguing against President Trump not using more airy-fairy language, okay?
I have to say, bravo to the New York Times. Thank you so much for alienating every single American that actually has intelligence. Thank you. I appreciate that. That supercilious nature of that freaking article that's clearly written by an English professor has done absolutely nothing to change the minds of the farmers in Iowa, the farmers in Ohio, the farmers in Nebraska, because they're looking at that article going, oh, this fucking guy thinks he's smart. Fuck you. Yeah. This is how we speak. That's it. You can't stand it. And I love it. And so do the farmers all over Kansas. That's correct. All of the heartland applauds the New York Times for absolutely helping Trump win. Amen.
Well, if you love that, James, you're absolutely going to love this. So remember, we're criticizing Donald Trump's language here. I love when we get these little moments of self-reflection from the corporate press. Oh, by the way, it's also... Oh, it's not going to play. I always seem to have this problem on this show. I don't know why it does that to me on this show. It's only on this show that it doesn't. Oh, there you go.
The Weekly Stelter.
There you go. So if you like that, James, remember language is key here. Brian Stelter invited on the founder of Vox Media, not known for its pro-Trump stance on most issues, to discuss why the media gets so upset at Donald Trump's language. You're going to love this.
You know, impeachment is usually portrayed by the press and as politicians as a worst-case scenario, a trauma, a stain on the country, a scar. But Ezra Klein says the process is only traumatic if we all decide it is. 2 years ago, he argued for the normalization of impeachment, saying, hey, this is exactly what the founders intended all along.
So 2 years ago, the language started. But the language started 2 years ago wasn't that impeachment was imminent. It was, hey, we all need to get used to the idea of impeachment. They are completely uncloaking themselves. They're completely revealing the play that's been in action for the last 2 years here. It's stunning.
Klein says most people can be fired for their jobs for poor performance. And President...
I think if I was a member of the corporate press, I wouldn't want one of my comrades bandying that around. Because remember, Ezra Klein is the guy who runs Vox. Isn't Vox going broke, James? Didn't Vox just sack a whole bunch of journalists? Hasn't Vox gone from being worth 10 times as much money, only a few years ago to where it is now? So going by that logic, poor performance, shouldn't he be sacked himself? Oh, no. I'm talking about the president. Okay. Close one.
And Trump was able to get to where he is today in part by being on The Apprentice and saying you're fired.
Wait a minute. What?
So easy. It's so simple. I don't know why you struggle with this. So obvious. I mean, Donald Trump doesn't have a problem with firing people. He did it all the time on his TV show. He should be fired. Yeah. Fire him. See how he likes it, the big bully.
His point is that impeachment shouldn't be viewed as this emergency that's going to do terrible damage to the country. No. It's actually a helpful process. A
helpful process. That's how we're reframing this thing. How many times has it happened in the past? Twice, officially? Twice. In how many years? How many hundreds of years, James? You're the American. Help me out here.
It's 3 times. It's 3 times in 243 years. Yeah, 3 times. Andrew Johnson, Richard Nixon didn't actually get impeached.
That's Clinton, what I'm saying. So it was twice.
But they voted on the impeachment inquiry in Nixon's case. They just never got to the end of it. So that's why I say technically 3 times, because he wasn't impeached, but they did actually vote to start the...
Then it's technically wrong, James.
That's right.
If he wasn't impeached, it's technically wrong, not technically right. Come on now. Come on now.
That's right.
Al-Baghdadi.
Twice. 243 years. That's right. See, this is what we have to say, right? The Boogie knows more about American politics than most Americans, even me.
That's going a little too far. I do know a bit about Al-Bugattis, though. Tremendous vehicle. How many references is that to the Bugatti? And does that one count? That's the question. All right, let's carry on.
Helpful.
Oh, well, wait, before we do, though. So we're reframing this thing that literally tears the country apart, right? Kicking out an elected president, okay, impeaching an elected president, tears the country apart, turns the country in on itself. No, we need to think about it as a helpful process. It's just like moving somebody on into retirement. That's the way we need to consider it. Consider it, we're putting Donald Trump in the old folks' home. You know, there'll be nurses there to take care of him. It'll all be fine. Don't worry about Granddad. Granddad's going to be okay. This is just part of a helpful process here. Healing, James. We're healing.
Part of our system of checks and balances. So we talked about that, and I also asked Klein, who's the co-founder and editor-at-large of Vox Media, about Trump's need to control media coverage.
Not just Trump's need to control media coverage, but your willingness to help him do it, Brian, unknowingly.
President Trump, how do you think he's trying to control media coverage? Right now?
The fundamental insight Donald Trump has always had about the media is that our definition of newsworthiness relies incredibly heavily on the idea of outrageousness.
See what I mean? These little shards of self-reflection just coming into the bubble every now and then. But of course, they completely misdiagnose the fucking problem and make it worse, of course.
So it is like new plus outrageous equals newsworthy.
Okay.
It's not just new. It's not just important. It's like new, like maybe plus important, but definitely plus outrage equals newsworthy.
Okay.
So
outrage.
Donald Trump was able to get, not us all, but many of us, to spend a day talking about whether or not he was right to use the word lynching, and then somebody else used the word lynching in the 90s around Bill Clinton. And in doing, he was able to get us to have a conversation, or at least to frame a conversation that would not have been otherwise possible for him, which is the media, is the political system treating him unfairly?
Now, this is something I have to say. I don't think that Donald Trump used the word lynching to get the media talking about a broader conversation about whether Donald Trump is being treated unfairly or not. Donald Trump knows he's not being treated fairly by the media. And I would suspect that Donald Trump used the word lynching just because it's a word that people use, and it's not necessarily meaning that he wants to kill all black people. He doesn't want to hang black people by the neck until they suffocate. Do you understand? They're trying to make out like Donald Trump using this word lynching is like some kind of 4D chess move, when in reality, no, it just shows how unhinged you are, how off the scale unhinged you are, because you took that word, you isolated it. And in order for it to make sense to them, they're not saying that we went way over the top by getting angry about the lynching word. They're saying Donald Trump is playing us because he's a mastermind.
But
you know what I mean?
I agree. I agree. And I will tell you this. He did play them, and he knew they would do it. And I can prove it. Here's my anecdotal evidence to prove that Donald Trump manipulated all of you freaks in the media. Is that within hours, Twitter had, through various forms, every video of every Democrat in history saying lynching on CNN.
He gets to that.
On MSNBC. It's incredible.
He gets to that. He literally mentions that. So if that's true then, so if they knew that Donald Trump using the term lynching was just a play to get them to talk about how unfairly he's being treated in America, why did they do it then?
Exactly.
Why did you do it then? Right? If you knew all along that he's working you, why did you go along with it? So that's why I find it not believable, you see?
Yep.
Because if they knew that he was playing them by planting that word, then they wouldn't have gone along with the outrage cycle. But they did it. They did.
By starting up an impeachment process around his actions, trying to extort Ukraine to interfere on his behalf in the 2020 election. Now, if he had just come out and said, I don't think it's fair for Congress to impeach me or for the media to report on it, nobody would have cared. But because he was able to create a meta conversation around, was it unfair for him to use the word lynching? Was that offensive?
Oh my God.
Now we're talking meta conversation.
Meta conversations. He created a meta conversation. No. See, no, he didn't. You did. You created the meta conversation. You're the ones that started the conversation. Is it right to use the word lynching? Are we allowed to use the word lynching? Isn't lynching kind of offensive? I don't think we should use the term lynching. I don't think anybody should use the term lynching. Is it still in the dictionary? It should be ripped out. It's racist. Who wrote the dictionary? Some white guy. You're the people who made that conversation. And in doing so, everybody then turned around and said, hey, I don't think they're treating this guy very fairly. Lynching isn't a racist word. It's just a word. Like, you guys are going crazy. Oh, no. Donald Trump made us go crazy. Donald Trump's a big bully who made us do crazy things about lynching. You see what I'm saying here? These people are unhinged.
Great comment in the chat. Word Spider says mental masturbation. Absolutely.
Then Lindsey Graham comes in and does the same. It got a lot of coverage. Similarly, when the House Republicans massed outside the classified hearing room, by creating a media spectacle, they got coverage for something that if they just sent out some press releases, they wouldn't have before.
Here's the thing. They're acting like this is new. So that storming of that room, right? They act like they've never seen anything like this before. Do you remember maybe 2.5 years ago, James, a whole bunch of congressional Democrats sitting on the floor, right? In the gun debate?
Yeah.
And they refused to leave.
Yeah.
And they were screaming like babies on the floor of the House. No, we're not going anywhere until you do something about gun violence, right? Same thing, and all the press were in there. So this isn't new. Oh, it's new when it's happening over there because it's devilish. It's
another one. Don't forget the Steve Cohen guy who decided to eat the KFC.
Oh yeah, put a little chicken in front of him. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
That's funny. Yeah, it's all new, though. They just invented this.
So as the impeachment inquiry escalates and the situation...
Exploiting media spectacles to create coverage. Remember the Covington school? Like, we had a shard of self-awareness, and then it's completely blown out of the water all over again. You know what? I think we went a little bit too far on the whole lynching thing. I think we took that too far. You're right. You know why we took it too far? Because Donald Trump planted the word there and wanted us to do it, and we didn't know because he's a genius, a mind genius when it comes to the media. You know, I'm beginning to think that the GOP and Donald Trump are exploiting media spectacles to create news coverage. Oh, really? I think it's all a big scam.
Think about the cognitive dissonance it takes for CNN to have this guy on the air. That basically CNN wants you and all the left wants you to think that Donald Trump is a complete moron. He can't tie his shoes. And yet now, in order to sell this point, he's a genius that plants a word landmine into the media and forces you inadvertently, completely ignorantly, to give him all of the coverage that he wanted in the first place. Wait a minute. So he's a genius that can't tie his shoes. Like Albert Einstein.
And again, in order to believe that, you have to also simultaneously believe that you knew that you were getting outraged over the word, even though Donald Trump wanted you to do it.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. You knew it, but you had to do it anyways.
We had to do it because it's so important.
For Trump becomes more dangerous, more politically dangerous.
He's
going to act out in ever more outrageous ways as he attempts to turn the conversation back to him, because what he gets and has always gotten is it doesn't matter if the coverage is bad. It just matters if he controls it. Donald Trump would always rather control coverage that is negative towards him, because immediately
you are getting sleepy.
I can't do it, dude. I'm looking at this guy and he's You ever notice that all of these guys that want you to believe me, I've opened my eyes as wide as I can, and I'm going to raise an eyebrow every once in a while. I'm giving you eye contact. Believe me, you're getting sleepy.
You're getting very sleepy. Maybe that's why nobody believes me, because they can't see my eyes, James. I had the guy in here before when I called Kamala Harris a tart, and he said, tart, that's pretty big words coming from a guy who blacks out his face. And I thought, well, yeah, I could be president of fucking Canada one day if I keep going with this. So keep on with the blackface. Right?
Media being negative towards him is actually his brand. It's not bad for his brand. Then lose control of the coverage, even if it in some ways is more positive. The facts of the story that is leading to impeachment here are so overwhelming and intense and
we're back to
fast-moving.
Impeachment. Remember, Jeff Zucker said himself, it's all got to go back to impeachment. We've all got to keep talking about impeachment.
That I think they've been.
So, okay, so what you're saying, Mr. Klein, is he used the word lynching in that tweet in order to steer the conversation away from impeachment, to distract you from impeachment. Well, then mission accomplished. And you knew it all along, and then you did it anyway. What the hell is wrong with these people, James?
More than able to dominate the news cycle, and I don't think we've been overwhelmingly getting the balance of that wrong. But I think you have to expect that we're going to see this strategy play out, and the different things Donald Trump might do to make this strategy play out.
Like what?
Including, who knows, moving that DOJ inquiry to a criminal one, right? I don't give a
Perfect.
Oh my God.
That's it. I'm done. I'm out. I'm quit. I quit the show. I'm out. So he did that. Donald Trump did that. He directed them to move it. You know, it should be a criminal investigation. I think we should up the ante. Bill, can we get Bill Barr in here, please? Bill, sit down. I think we need to up the investigation ante. The media is getting really upset that I used the word lynching. Can you do something about that, please? Thank you, Bill.
White House right now, and the kinds of things they may try to do to wrench back the narrative could become quite dangerous to the system.
It's dangerous to the now we're protecting the system, James. We need to protect the system. Remember, Vox wanted the political outsider just as much as Donald Trump supporters did. Now we don't want the political outsider anymore. No, the system is what's important. We need to protect the establishment, James. We need to rally around the establishment, protect the troops.
I expect that in their reaction to this, you're going to have more impeachable offenses emerge, and that does make me quite worried. Donald Trump's never more dangerous than when he's cornered, and given what he understands about the media and the political system, the kinds of things he does when he's cornered can be quite corrosive to our democracy.
It's just words. You know what I mean? At some point you wake up and you realize, and you'll snap out of it. And WordSmart is in the chat. I know WordSmart has worked in PR and stuff, so she would get this on an intrinsic level, right?
Right.
It's just words. There's a lot of words that don't mean anything. He's not saying anything. He's saying that Donald Trump is going to get more dangerous, and the things that he does are so dangerous, it becomes system. But what it's corrosive to the system. What does that actually mean? Be specific. What are you talking about? Right. These people are just they're word smiters. Right? That's what they do. So they put a whole bunch of words out there to create an inference in the audience, to create a feeling, to create an environment where you think things are a certain way, but they don't actually tell you anything specific at all. Because specifics are they're much harder to articulate, right? It's very hard to convince people with specifics. If you can just give them a general story and make it sound awful, then that's good enough for most people. They'll go, I really don't know why I'm so upset today, but it just feels wrong. You know what I mean?
And the cycle you described with this new and outrageous, right-wing media is right there with you.
It's all the right-wing media is creating the outrage. They literally just said they went over the top on lynching. They literally just did it. Right? They literally... So they create the outrage over the word lynching, right? Yeah. And in Brian Stelter's mind, the real outrage comes from like right-wing media who laughs at them making a big deal about lynching. Oh, Fox Media doesn't help with the outrage cycle. I mean, look at all the coverage they got over us getting really upset over the word lynching. How dare they? They're creating the outrage cycle.
So
it's fucking shameless. It's shameless.
I think it's
Look at what the Federalist.
dissonance.
It's a whole bunch of things. I don't even know where to start. It's probably an addiction to prescription drugs at some level. I mean, where do you even start with this shit?
Wrote on Friday, let me quote from it. What we are facing now is not partisan warfare. It's not a mystery novel. It's not politics as usual. We are facing an attempt to tear down the foundations of our republic by corrupt, unelected bureaucrats who have decided the will of the voters is subordinate to their will to power.
Brian, I watched on your show as you read quotes from a New York Times article of an unelected bureaucrat explaining exactly that. That they go into work every day looking to subvert Donald Trump's agenda. This is not part of the outrage cycle. This isn't the outrage machine. You have reported it as fact on your network 6 months ago.
That's right.
This was fact. There are bureaucrats. Thank God for the deep state, James. God bless those angels.
Wasn't there an article that you and I did that you brought from Politico, I think it was, like 2 years ago, that said that don't worry, we know that there's White House advisors that are working to thwart what Donald Trump's worst tendencies are? Remember that? Oh my God. Like, you're reporting it. It's not like some crazy kooky conspiracy theory.
No. And when someone else reports on your reporting, you're like, oh, they're adding to the outrage cycle. They're creating the outrage cycle.
It represents a fatal threat to our system.
How right-wing media plays into Trump's impeachment outrage. The chyron should be how CNN plays into Trump's impeachment outrage, right? It's completely shameless.
System of government. And if this coup succeeds, the nation will cease to be a constitutional democratic republic.
For an outlet called The Federalist.
Here we go. Now we're going to defend impeachment reporting. Wait till you hear this.
To write something like that is shameful.
Shameful.
Look at shameful. Shameful. What? This guy is pretty good, actually. I think this guy probably is a mentalist. Watch what he does. Because remember who his audience is. It's not us. He's not doing this for us. This is for their audience. So who is their audience? Understand that. And now watch what this guy is doing. This is a guy that's literally getting to their base instincts. Watch his face and his eyes, what he's doing. He knows what he's doing. You can clearly see what he's doing. This is like a left-wing programmer for like a Tony Robbins style personality. Just literally, I can see what he's doing. It's incredible, actually. He's actually pretty good at it. It's false, of course, but he's pretty good at it.
It's not politics as usual. We are facing an attempt to tear down the foundations of our republic by corrupt, unelected bureaucrats who have decided the will of the voters is subordinate to their will to power. It represents a fatal threat to our system of government. And if this coup succeeds...
I don't know if you could hear it in the background there. You just heard him go...
the nation will cease to be a constitutional democratic republic.
For an outlet called The Federalist, to write something like that is shameful.
Shameful.
It is shameful.
Shameful.
Federal 65, Alexander Hamilton gives his whole argument for impeachment. Why it's going to be in the Senate, what it's done, and it is a...
Hamilton, that's a topical reference.
Process, he says, to manage political offenses.
See, it's the exact same thing.
Offenses
he just made our point. I want you guys to understand this. Now we have to let's listen to what he says, and then I want you to remember what I just said in my scope the other day about what this judge did when they tortured the Constitution in order to make a ruling saying that you can look at the Federalist Papers and it is clearly a judicial process. Wrong. And here is a Federalist Paper reference telling you that they knew it was a political process, and CNN knows it's a political process, and left-wing people know it's a political process. It has nothing to do with a judicial process. This is actually pretty good shit, but listen to how they're spinning it so that their audience goes, yes, 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 the Constitution's on our side. Wrong.
Red meat for the vegans.
Yep.
Republic.
For an outlet called The Federalist, to write something like that is shameful. It is shameful. Federal 65, Alexander Hamilton gives his whole argument for impeachment. Why it's going to be in the Senate, what it's done, and it is a process, he says, to manage political offenses. Offenses that by their very nature are an injury to society.
Political offenses.
Impeachment is not a coup. It is the opposite of a coup.
Oh.
It is the exact process the founders built into the country so we wouldn't have coups. So we would have a way when a president had become lawless or began abusing power, we would have a way in between elections to hold them accountable.
You know, James, a gun isn't a weapon. A gun is a thing, it's clearly defined as a thing for self-defense. It's not an aggressive weapon, right? So an impeachment clearly isn't a coup. No, it's the opposite of a coup. You know, the gun is the opposite of a weapon, James. It's a defensive tool, right? What happens when if the aggressive guy gets hold of the gun? Does it then become a weapon? Right? I think to be fair here, they're obviously mischaracterizing it. The coup is all the other stuff surrounding the process of impeachment. The illegal spying, for example, being one of those things, right? That's what the coup is. The act of impeachment is just the gun in the guy's hand. It's not the upbringing of the guy holding the gun. That's the rest of the stuff.
Whatever happens in impeachment, whether Trump is impeached in the first place, whether he is acquitted or he's convicted in the Senate, it is the constitutional process working exactly as intended, something constitutional conservatives are expecting.
Great. So I guess then when the impeachment vote succeeds but the Senate trial fails, or when whole swaths of the country reject the impeachment talk, as we know they are because we've been tracking this, poll increase in people getting sick of the impeachment stuff and people not liking the impeachment. Even districts that voted for Hillary Clinton, James, in 2016 are now swinging violently towards the GOP. So when all that comes to pass and the GOP potentially wins back the House in 2020 and Donald Trump is returned to the White House, I imagine that will be the Constitution working as it always has, as it should be, as it's supposed to work. And I trust there will be no complaints then. Of course not. That would be silly. That would be silly to assume that. Ladies and gentlemen, that's your hammering.
Stop the hammering.
Folks, that's all the time we got for you, but don't go anywhere because I'm going to show you something really good on the way out, and you're going to want to see it. And it backs up what Boogie just played for us on the hammering. So for Boogie, for me, thank you for being here. Aloha. We'll see you next week. If you want to follow him, you can follow him at Boogie Bumper. If you want to follow me,
you won't see us next week. We won't be here next week.
That's right. We won't be here next week. I forgot. Big announcement. No Tab Show next week. Boogie Bumper is going on a mission to discover how many tunnels there are in Afghanistan. He's going to be deep in a hole somewhere.
I'm going to Hawaii. I'm going to float around at the docks of Honolulu and wait for a Russian speedboat to drop off bags of cash intended for Tulsi Gabbard. That's what I'll be doing. Fishing for rubles.
Fishing for rubles. There you go. If you want to follow him, you can follow him at Boogie Bumper. If you want to follow me, you can follow me at Real Person PLTCS. If you want to follow us, you can follow us at TAV Show. And you can always find all our prior episodes at TAVshow.com. Take care. We will see you soon, sometime in the future. Aloha.
I got it from my daddy. 낮에는 잠만 자 밤이 오면 상남자 널 보자마자 나 너무 좋아서 뻑이가 보면 애미다 신나면 너리 내미다 오빠가 깜빡이 아끼고 훅 때려 get me down. Hold up, wait a minute 지금부터 선수끼리 밤이 아까워 turn up louder 불타오르는 아름다운 그대여. How you like me now? How you like me now? How you like me now? How you like me now?
Hey, where'd you get that body from? Where'd you get that body from? Where'd you get that body from?
I got it from my daddy. I got it from my daddy. I got it.
Hey, where'd you get that body from?
I got it from my daddy. I got it from my daddy. I got it.
Hey, where'd you get that body from?
I got it from my daddy. Daddy. I got it from my daddy. got it from my dad. Daddy. I got it from my dad.
For a socialist who'll destroy the economy, or do I vote for a socialist who's totally insane and who'll destroy the economy? Well, for the rest of us, here's an easy one. Donald Trump. It's a fact. In Trump's America, more people are getting a paycheck than ever before. 6 million new jobs in 3 years. That's one new job every 12 seconds, 250 an hour, and $3 billion in value every day. No wonder the guy's filling stadiums. Trump ain't raising the bar, he is the bar. It's payday. Keep America great. Stand with Trump in 2020.
Do you remember when big tech called themselves the free speech platform and used slogans like "Don't be evil"? Fast forward a decade, and suddenly those platforms we loved for years have changed, and the promises they made at the start no longer apply. So what happened? How did we get here? Over the last decade, these companies have quietly moved their corporate headquarters outside the US to EU tax havens. The big change? Well, big tech is now governed under UN law. In simple terms, US free speech laws no longer apply to these platforms. What started as free speech for all is now regulated speech to some. We believe you, the people, not big tech, are the best judge of what you want to watch, read, and hear. We are content creators. We understand that a creator's ability to make a living should not be infringed upon. We created Zap Media with you in mind, a free market, next-gen media platform that believes in protecting your speech rights and, equally as important, your privacy, including IP theft and data mining. By removing the threat of censorship and freeing the market, content creators have a home base to build their platforms and grow their brands. The Zap Media community are brand ambassadors, coalescing behind publishers, subscribers, and advertisers alike. This is the beginning of the next big wave in digital media. With an estimated 225 million video-on-demand users expected by 2022, Zap is poised with your help to revolutionize the marketplace as we know it. We look forward to partnering with you.